Hello, Sharita.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm doing well.
All right. Thank you for all of that. I don't know how we're going to see all of that data that you got that you said earlier. It's voluminous, you say, right? Is it in paper format or electronic?
What?
The breakdown of the spending for all the divisions.
Oh, the report?
Yeah, you gave us a summary, but you said
Right.
that ultimately there's a huge document
Yeah,
that
it's Excel. It's Excel.
it's Excel.
Yes.
You know how many megabytes it is?
I don't know. I would have to look at it and see.
Okay. Hi, Patrice. Sister Patrice.
How are you all?
I'm good. I like the blue. You got the
Thank you.
matching, the glasses are matching the head cover. It's beautiful.
It looks great on this end.
I won't call it Zeta Blue, but since we're recording, I might.
You look too sharp.
You see, I have on my blue, although it's not Sigma blue. It's just blue.
You guys know red is my favorite color.
Is it really? All right.
We don't
I'll
need you and
look
Sharita in here set tripping right now. We don't need that. We don't need that.
Well, Sharon, you're outnumbered because blue is actually my favorite color as well.
Oh boy.
Reggie is the epitome of a elected official.
Yes, yeah. He
He knows
found a
how to
way.
play to a room.
He brought it all together. Yeah. Mr. Carter, how are you this
Hey.
afternoon?
How y'all doing?
Good, good.
Is this the last Friday afternoon call or Zoom meeting?
Likely. We can talk more about that, but we know that the afternoon has been challenging for Sister Patrice. So if we
And
do
we
another-
are live on YouTube, everyone.
yes.
Oh,
And so we might look at a different time if we need to have another meeting. Hey, Kim,
Hello,
how are you?
Hey.
I'm good. How are you all?
Very well, thank you.
Kim, how are you doing?
Thank you.
I missed that. I'm sorry.
I told Patrice.
Oh,
Everybody's commenting on all my extra blue today. I'm accused of wearing blue every single day, so I think it might actually be true.
I get that all the time. I even had my boss ask me one time, "You wear a lot of blue, right?"
Wildcat blue, right, Kim?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, you.
Got the earrings on at least today. So
I've seen many Facebook posts. I know you're a strong Wildcat fan.
Well, I would say that's good, Kim, but I'll be accused of being political.
yeah, you can't do that. Reggie, you and I still bleed green and gold though.
But that we do. That we do.
All right, I got that one. Yep, I hear that.
Do we have everybody, Sharita, who accepted?
Yes. And Erin says she's going to be a little late.
A little late. Yeah, I saw that.
Everybody.
Okay, so if we have everybody, we'll go ahead and get started. We'll call the meeting to order at 1:30 p.m. today. I'm going to go ahead and read that virtual statement and get that out of the way so our work can begin. So due to the COVID-19 pandemic, state of emergency, and Governor Beshear's executive orders regarding social distancing, this meeting is being held via teleconference pursuant Senate Bill 150 as signed by the governor on March 30th, 2020, and Attorney General Opinion 20-05, and in accordance with KRS 61826, because it is not feasible to offer a primary physical location for this meeting. Okay. So everyone should have already received a copy of the minutes from July 31st, 2020. As I understand it, before we need to approve those, we have a couple of edits that need to be made. Daryl, do you want to go ahead and read your edits so that Sharita can make those for the record?
Yes, ma'am. How you doing?
Hi there.
All right, so in the paragraph starting with Mr. Thompson commented on education outcome number 3, if you'll add that the second iteration of a 5-year recruitment and retention plan, and then it goes on to say for FCPS is in the Google Drive. And then let me know if you're there. I'll drop down in the bottom of that paragraph. And it starts with Mr. Thompson mentioned the career academies, Bryan Station, et cetera, to ensure students earn those degrees. If you'll add the language in alignment with the / next generation learning, NGL in parentheses, and Commerce Lexington's Business Engagement Network, which is BN in parentheses, that was mentioned by Daryl Smith during his presentation, and that was my comment there. And then lastly, in the paragraph beginning with Ms. Erin Howard commented on the new skills, the bottom of that paragraph should read, Daryl Thompson mentioned the $2.5 million allocated for years through the work of Senator Gerald Neal and Catherine Wallace circa 2002 to support minority recruitment and retention, which is the MERR Loan Forgiveness Scholarship that assisted with recruiting minorities to colleges and universities and into teaching / education, and whether these funds would be restored to the budget. And that concludes my recommended edits. Thank you.
Thank you, Daryl. Do we have any other edits?
Sharon, Erin sent an edit in via email since she's going to be late to change the spelling of skills U. It skills the letter U. So I have that change documented.
Mhm.
Thank you. Are there any other changes or edits? If not, we need a motion to approve the minutes of July 31st, 2020.
Motion.
That have been outlined today.
I motion to approve the edits from July with the recommended edits as so.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Bishop seconds.
All in favor indicate with an aye.
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 Any opposed? Sign. Okay, all in favor, motion carries. I'm going to go ahead and turn our meeting for today over to our Vice Chair, Anthony Wright, to get us going. Anthony, take us away.
Okay. Thank you all for being here today. We're getting down to the nitty gritty of what we're here to do and what we're ready to present to the mayor. I did want to just mention to you all that we had another meeting with the co-chairs this week, in fact, yesterday. And some very interesting discussion took place in that meeting. So I thought it would be prudent to just kind of give you some updates. So every committee gave an update on where they are, but we had some discussion that talked about really the work that we've been doing, that this has been difficult work, and they've been really proud of the work that we put in. They can definitely tell that everyone takes this very seriously. No one takes this lightly, and we put a lot of effort into, in a fairly short period of time, information that we think we want to bring forward to the mayor to consider, as well as the council. They did reiterate again, like the top 3 recommendations from our committees. Sharon and I certainly interpret that to be top 3 in economic outlook, top 3 in education. But the other thing that's important, and I'm glad they said this because I think we kind of felt the same way too, right, Sharon? They want all of them. They want to see all of our recommendations. They want all of them to come forward. So whether or not it is delivered in a phased approach or top priority in this section, and then the rest are here for your review, has not been determined yet. But it is clear that they are interested in every one of the reports, the recommendations that we would make. The mayor continues to be very supportive, and the co-chairs are meeting with her frequently, at least weekly, and she's supportive of what we're doing and wants us to bring forward what we bring forward. No kind of thinking about, well, I don't know whether or not they'd accept that, if that might be too rough, just bring it forward. And that's what we intend to do. We did get some insight though in terms of the format. We've got this week the template that we will be using to put together the recommendations to go forward. And any of you can see that if you choose. We kind of, Sharon and I kind of look at it as it's our responsibility to put this together in that right format, but we certainly would be willing to accept any assistance that the committee would love to give us on that. And there also was a point that was made as we think about what we're going to deliver. Remember that we've kept our work product pretty much out of the area for outside influence to impact that before we're ready to release that information, I guess is the best way to put it. So the document that we have that really talks about our outcomes, that's still our work product. And the thought that we gotten from the co-chairs was, at this time, we'd like to keep it the way you all have it. In other words, not it for public consumption yet. That will be released when they present it to the mayor and council. Okay, so no early looks, no heads up on what's coming. We also are very clear that there are a number of people who aren't ready for the kinds of change that we're going to recommend. And so some of those folks have also made themselves known. And that there will be some opposition, obviously, to what we share. But we went into this knowing that we would have some people who would not be in agreement with some of the things that we recommend. Our responsibility is to work together as a committee to bring those things forward, and that's what we intend to do. So in light of that, okay, just a second, Reggie. As we go forward into looking at the outcomes, the desired outcomes right now on economic opportunity, I think you'll hear Sharon and I refer to outcomes number 1, 2, 3, 4, and so forth, rather than reading what is listed there, because that suddenly now gives everybody a clear indication of what we're looking to bring forward. I hope that makes sense. But in order to kind of talk about what we see and maybe rank where we think the top 3 outcomes would be, let's refer to them as outcomes 1, 2, 3, and so forth. Okay, does that make sense? Reginald, you had a question, sir.
I did. Anthony, really throughout this process thus far at our meetings, I've been relatively quiet.
Yeah.
I really haven't said very much. But as you well know, Anthony, I am not a shy person. And I said today, since this was going to be a meeting in which we agreed on what were going to be our priorities, I was going to speak out more. And so I intend to do that today, Anthony. And by starters, as we've seen, with the way I conduct myself, I'm not afraid of opposition. I mean, I expect that. I live in an environment where people don't agree.
Right.
And you have to come to some kind of consensus and you express your disagreement. So that doesn't scare me at all, Anthony. I think we ought to come to an agreement as a group as to what we feel is important, be united in those recommendations we bring forward, and then advocate for those to the best and to the fullest of our abilities.
Sure. And I hope you don't think that because I'm sharing with you this entire group, as well as the viewing public, what the co-chairs have said to this point, that I have any fear in bringing this forward. So I don't suspect that you would. I certainly don't. I know that there's going to be opposition. I've been in that role before too. But I think in terms of as we communicate, I want us to talk about where we think the best 3 outcomes are, but also understanding that every outcome is going forward. Sharon and I are going to present every one of them.
And so if I could jump in for a 2-minute, and Reggie, I appreciate you putting your statement forward. I think this is I would call it an NFL, a non-fearful learning environment where all of us should be able to engage in open, and I would say false. I don't like artificial harmony. By no means are we going to ever achieve what we need to do if we're faking it. So I think we have to be authentic about what we're doing. And so my position, again, as it has been from the beginning, as this issue was brought forth, that if you look at the title in the overall mission, it talks about the city of Lexington. And we all make up pieces and parts of the city of Lexington, but more importantly, it was brought regarding what can the city of Lexington do to improve race and justice in the city. No more than what Dr. Capilouto was doing at the University of Kentucky under his leadership. If that was brought to him, he would have addressed that issue as he's done under his organization. The same for Fayette County Public Schools, the same for Toyota. So now that this is in the lap of the mayor, I unapologetically say that this is an issue that the mayor needs to address and not redirect or conflate issues back to other organizations that are managing their business accordingly. So even though we'll have all these recommendations that might point back to other areas in the city, other organizations, we need to be mindful. This is the charge that was asked for. What can the mayor do to change racial justice and equity in the city of Lexington? That is, when we talk about recruitment and retention for teachers, for instance, people go to work where they want to live. All right. So if we can't change the place of Lexington being a place where more people of diversity and inclusion want to live, well, we can shoot recruiting teachers. It's an empty bucket. So that's where I'm pointing my issues back to, and that is back to where it landed, and that is in the mayor's office. So I unapologetically will continue to redirect us in that direction.
Great, excellent point. Anyone else? Okay, with that, does everybody have their desired outcomes document available for review? Yes, Sister Patrice.
I do have that document, but it just sparked in my mind. Have we received any comments from the community? Have we gotten in those emails that go to the racial justice email address? And have we offered that email address to people watching us on Zoom to send us comments?
Yes, great point. Sharon?
Yes, Patrice, actually last week during the meeting, I gave the email address because we actually want to hear from the community any comments, suggestions, recommendations that they may have. Because although we sit on this committee, we know that the work that we're doing is on behalf of the city. And so we wanted to give the entire city the opportunity, to give us some feedback, any of their comments. And to my knowledge, unless we received some that I'm not aware of, we did not receive any from the last meeting. We have received a couple of comments, about the diversity on our group, the makeup of our group and things like that. But not anything as far as recommendations or you need to think about this or you need to think about that. We haven't received that. And because we didn't receive that, that's why I told Anthony last week, I wanted to make sure that I did a plea to the city to let them know, to the folks that are watching, the community members, to go ahead and offer your feedback to us, because maybe there's an issue that we're not addressing amongst our group and is being left off the table, and we wanted to be able to hear that too.
That's right. That's right. And I have actually received some additional information from other individuals in the community who are interested in seeing policy changes and actually referring me to some other documents that talk about those policy changes. I got that this week, and I'm certainly going to share it with the rest of the committee. So we get some information, but I don't, Sharon, you would agree, I don't think either one of us has been inundated with that.
No. Now, some of the things that have not come by way of that email address, we have addressed in our document, as far as gifted and talented, the whole child approach, expanding early childhood education. Those things have come to us or come to me by way of phone calls and people from the community calling and saying, hey, I see you're sitting on this committee. You need to remember to talk about this. And so those were some of the things that made its way into our document before our very first meeting. So I guess what I'm saying is we're doing every effort to make sure that when we receive comments or recommendations from the community, that we're including those two, because this is a collective document.
Okay, any other questions? So if we start at outcome number one, and let me just first kind of tell you about some of the things that over the course of this time, we may have had as other outcomes, but really could be included in other areas. A lot of what you all did on the second meeting, I think that we did this, made some suggestions on where information could be moved to, because it's similar to or is a component of one of the outcomes. So you'll see, I want to address your attention to the items that are highlighted in yellow under outcome number one. That particular bullet that's highlighted was outcome number 5. I moved that to 1 because it really kind of works in conjunction with the overall goal, and that is to increase the amount that's done with MBEs. Outcome 2, this was a suggestion that came from, I think, Sister Patrice originally, that all departments and divisions be added to outcome number 2. And certainly we've done that. So you'll see that was in outcome number 8. And then number 12 was the development of the tax incentive. We've also moved that there because, again, this is looking at what can be done on overall spend, both contracted and just department and division purchases. Go ahead, so Brother Bishop.
Oh, sorry. Are you able to share that? Only reason I said that because we're talking about outcomes and we're on YouTube and we're live. So at least if somebody's watching, they know what we're referring to.
No, yeah, that's something I don't want to do.
Okay.
That because we have not done that to this point with this document.
Okay.
This is our
that's
work.
Fine. I just want to make sure okay, I'm good.
Is you good?
And I have a question.
Do you need it, Bishop? Do you have it with you? Oh, you got
what date document are you working from? Is it dated? I have something from Sharon dated August 1st. That must be old.
Yeah, I sent something else later in the week on Tuesday.
I'll find it. Just let me know what's the title, please.
Let me just send it to you.
At the top.
Yeah, Patrice, it was sent on Tuesday.
Thank you.
Okay. So the other change, outcome number 4, just in light of the presentations that we've seen on some growing areas of our economy, that professional services and finance was not listed there. I added that bullet because, again, the data seems to suggest that that's another area for opportunity. And we now have, as a result of combining some outcomes into other outcomes, we have 9 total at this point that we will certainly be bringing forward without giving a ranking yet on any one of the 3. Now, in my mind, I have thoughts on what I think are clearly the most important thing, the most important 3 that we should put forth immediately, but I do want to have some discussion about that. Brother Thomas.
Yes, Anthony, thank you. My understanding was that today, we as a committee were going to agree on the top 3.
Right.
I thought that's what
I just said.
Today.
Yeah, that's correct.
So what 3 do you without, and then we'll go, I think we'll talk about it, but what are you seeing from your seat as the top 3?
Sure. I think ultimately the most important thing that I've heard on this topic and what we've always struggled with is outcome number 1. So I would say that outcome number 1 clearly needs to be one of those top 3 that we submit. It has the most opportunity to have more opportunity for people of color than any other thing we've got on here with the city can drive. Okay. The next one would be outcome number 6. We have talked about doing that study for years. I've been here 25, 26 years. it's been part of that conversation for around that length of time, if not more. I think it's time for us to really do that disparity study. I think when you think about the opposition that other people are going to have towards what we're suggesting, that disparity study will give the data that would support why the policy changes are very, very necessary. And I think it's an important piece to have for us, because then you can get to that word that Bishop so eloquently added to these pieces in red. You need the disparity study to get to those.
So you said number 6?
Yes.
So I'm reading on my form dated, so I must be working from the wrong document. I suppose.
You might be on the wrong one. Okay.
Yep, got you.
You want me to send it to you, or you want to dig for it? I can send it to you real quick.
I'll send it while you keep going.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Daryl, again, it was submitted, it was something that Anthony and Sharon sent us on Tuesday.
Yeah. And then the final one that I would say, the beautiful work done by Sister Patrice and Kim, outcome number 8. I think you have a hard time doing anything with the other 2 unless you know who they are. And for us to be able to very clearly, very succinctly, and very openly communicate to the public and to the community who is interested in working with minority businesses, this is the vehicle that they will need in order to start that work. So I would contend that 1, 6, and 8 are our top. Go ahead, Sister Patrice.
I would say that I agree with those. I know this, we're not voting yet, that I think there's discussion to be had. I'm willing to sacrifice mine up front, that we can start the conversation with the recommendation by Kim and I. It is not clearly stated that I know we needed to work on it, and that's why I wanted the committee's help. That the premise of this was that anytime this has been a project taken on by a minority-owned publisher independently, it's hot to love Black business, then it's not, and then it's hard for that to be sustained.
Yes.
We believe that the city of Lexington should bear the responsibility for publishing this document because of the annual fee that businesses pay. There's a registration fee that's submitted, this annual $100. I would guess, and we have no way to know, and we're not here to shame any particular small business, but I would venture to say most small businesses pay that fee the first time they're registering with the city, and the city's probably not collecting that revenue on an annual basis, that annual $100. So what I would say is that what part of this recommendation is that the city actually contract, put out an RFP for an organization, a minority publisher, to actually use their sales force to contact minority businesses, make sure that they are registered with the city, and there's no other fee for them to be included in part of this. These are all businesses that are registered to do business in the city of Lexington. I think that the first 2 years, the budget for this will be a little higher because you're trying to get in touch with these businesses. After year 2, people will get used to this document. They will say, how do I get to be a part of this? Oh, it comes automatically with your registration with the city. There will be a box you can check. So I'm saying that Kim and I, we thought this through, and Kim wanted to make sure that I articulated that part, that this, when we talk about budget impact, we're not saying grab $250,000 out of thin air. Right. We're saying you probably have money that has been uncollected as of this point, and the enticement for people to go ahead and do this registration is such that they can participate. Because also what I heard, and I wish Tyrone was here to be able to bear witness, I heard that a lot of businesses could not apply for that PPP loan because they had not paid their registration or annual fee to the city, that these are businesses that had to have already been on record with the city. And people said, hey, I did that 20 years ago, but I didn't know I was supposed to do it every year. So I'm saying that to say that that's the additional language I'm going to add to it. And so that's how I believe this to be a budget neutral item, that at some point we will, generate revenue. We will actually put numbers in there. That's something I learned from Senator Reggie, that you will hear from our recommendation later, that we got to put a dollar in there. So we do want to amend this, that we're going to put a specific dollar amount for years 1 and 2. Then there will be a lesser amount for years 3 and beyond. But again, this will be revenue. This will be the way that this will be funded will be based on the registrations that minority businesses and all businesses are paying toward the city.
And if I could jump in, real quick, I appreciate that, Ms. Muhammad and Ms. Sweezy. And if we could add an inquiry-based approach to that same great recommendation, which basically asks, I pay my $100 a year, and how is it used? How's it? Where is it? How do they utilize that money currently? That will help us understand how we can further redirect it in the future. Again, I pay mine. I don't ask. It's like taxation without representation. I guess you don't ask any questions because you're required to do it. But the bigger question is what's done with it when you do it, and what has been done. Here's what we propose be done. So that I appreciate you all working on that great recommendation.
Excellent. I agree. Any other thoughts on the three? I'm sure Senator Thomas has one or two. What do you think, sir?
Anthony, you know what? I learned a long time ago that if someone has said something that you agree with, the best thing you can do is be quiet.
Yes, sir.
That's a smart way to go. And I agree with you. I use your order. I think 1, 6, and 8 should be our top 3 recommendations. And I want to go on record as saying that I support that.
Thank you, sir.
So I would ask another inquiry-based approach. So if I look at $1.5 to $2 million, some would ask, there's a whole lot that can be done with that type of money, given the state of our community. You see homelessness downtown. You see all the other mental health issues. So I'm gonna play the role of the person who is not sitting on this committee that would say, why would we spend money like that just to study something? Because they don't see past they don't see the return on that investment. And they simply see it as an expense to do some research and exploration. So how do we defend or put forth a compelling why that the results of that $2 million commitment will yield $10 million worth of return or greater? So how can we help ourselves when we put a recommendation forward that has such a large ticket price to it?
Yeah, it's a great question.
Well, Daryl, I would respond to that by saying that when you look at how few dollars right now on Black enterprises compared to what's spent generally, in comparison to what our overall tax dollars go to the state as a population of the city, then we're getting cheated, and that it has an impact on wealth distribution, has an impact on employment, has an impact on housing, has an impact on poverty and job creation. And so when I think about all the millions of dollars that we've lost over decades in terms of revenues received from contracting and job creation and wealth building compared to what we represent in this city, I don't think 1.5 million to $2 million is difficult at all to justify. When what it will show, I believe, my hypothesis is that how little we get as a percentage of our population. I mean, and I'm talking about African American population. That's my
I don't disagree with that. I'm speaking on behalf of the starving household, the home that's about to lose their rent or their be evicted, who would say, well, couldn't we just use that money for that? So I'm fine with our compelling justification on this side. I'm speaking for those who aren't, the voices of those who aren't on the committee that would not see that differently, because they're in a different dire situation than many of us are.
Daryl, I completely agree on that, because one of the things that, we constantly, a lot of times, get asked for money for studies, and there's a negative connotation that goes with study, because people don't necessarily see what comes of those studies. It may take being able to say, showing examples of studies that were done and positive outcomes that came from them. If they had not been done, you wouldn't have had this or this or this. So those might be the things that we may have to put forward.
You have an
Agreed.
excellent point, and that's exactly why you see that underlined in blue, Cincinnati. They are a case in using this particular kind of study to increase the kind of economic impact that the community is seeing. So, but great point.
But Anthony, I think we need to look at what studies have been done in Lexington and show citizens.
There hasn't.
But I mean, no, but I'm saying any type of study. We may just even have to be able to say that, and it may not be on this particular topic, but I'm saying that we may have to promote just the use of studies alone to be able to convince people to say that, well, you wouldn't have had this as a citizen in Lexington had it not been studied. So those might be the things that we have to do, because people won't necessarily relate to Cincinnati, but if they understand what they didn't have otherwise, then they might understand it more.
I agree. That's a good point.
I have a, I'm sorry, Patrice. I have a comment, and I'm it's kind of tying in a little bit of everybody's comment, or a couple of people's comment over the last couple of minutes of this discussion. So there's one thing I just want to point out is I noticed we're focusing on, we're going to start with the city, focusing on the MBEs and getting more service and participation and the use of MBE businesses with the city. But at the same time, you got to figure out how does that apply to the private sector. But Sharita may be able to verify this before I misspeak. As a contractor or other certain businesses, the city accepts a certification. So you actually have to get certified as a minority supplier or business, which on a minimum cost may cost you $300, and it's kind of based off your revenue that you prove to whoever. I think it's TSMDC or one of them, tri-state basically, right? But when you do that, that doesn't necessarily say, let me use a catering service, you know, or a typical restaurant, or some assisted living service or something of that nature. A lot of times there's not a minority verification certification program that really benefits them. So they're not going to go reach out to Tri-State and pay all of that money if they're not going to get the benefits of being part of Tri-State. Now the city recognizes Tri-State. So now we get into the point, how are we validating that it's a minority business?
Minority business.
Right? Yeah. So it's all comes back to full circle. That's why I just want to be concerned. I just want to be careful of saying, you know, I don't, even along with the study, and, you know, I just don't want to eliminate people, because the ones that certified is going to make up probably 2% of the small 5% that's already in business. I mean, I want to say 0.02%, if you get what I'm saying. So we're going to leave out a lot of people that we're trying to include right now if we say you have to be certified, because there's not a mechanism right now that they can use, right?
Right. I want to back up what you're saying, Bishop, that I totally agree that I think our recommendation, we want the study done. I think maybe if we start out in an area of, I don't know if everyone's familiar with Louisville. I think they did just, Sharita, you may know, just their water department or just the transportation department. They just
Just the
did
water.
a disparity study. It was water, Bishop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was just that, right? And so there's certain suppliers that are within that particular supply chain. My concern, along with Bishop's, is that, okay, if people aren't certified, that may be one issue. But another issue we have is we're in the midst of a pandemic here. We've got a whole lot of people who are out of business right now, or whose businesses are temporarily shut down. So if we say somebody maliciously, is the word I'll use, says, here's a pot of money, go ahead and do this study, because they know right now we're at the lowest possible number of Black-owned businesses right now. We get it done and it proves that there aren't enough businesses to be worried about. We've wasted that money, and how hard will it be to get again? So my question is, I think if with just a little more time, if we could be very intentional about which area, if we're saying specifically construction, and we want to do a disparity study on the use of Black businesses within the construction field first, then we can expand that study into other areas. But I think if we're very intentional, and we know that we've got a good number, as long as we know construction hasn't gone under, we're good. But I know if we're doing an overall disparity study, the number of restaurants are down, the number of daycare centers are down. A lot of these businesses had to shut their doors in the past 6 months. So I want, like Bishop said, for us to be inclusive, but then also I just want to make sure that we're gauging the business that lets us have the most impact first, and then expand it. And so I think if we first start with the area of construction and then move our way into another direction, I'd be in support of that.
So here's a corollary to that thought, and I don't disagree with it. But you've been very vocal about, and I know Bishop has as well, of making sure that we're looking at all of the divisions of spend within the city, not just the construction piece. And so what I don't want to do is, well, I think we need to be careful. How about that? In putting the parameters around the study so tight that we also hurt ourselves in the other areas. Can we not just deal with that by looking at the time frame under which we do the study? Not saying during COVID, let's go back to last year. Let's go back and choose a period over a certain number of years that may not include what we're experiencing now, because you're right. There's clearly some people who are not in business right now.
So if we go back and pick a different period, just what I brought up in the previous recommendation, you've got some Black businesses that may not have even been registered with the city. They have been operating, I don't want to say under the radar, because I don't believe it was anything nefarious about it. I think people may or may not have known about this paperwork that was required annually, depending on how old your business is. Maybe they're doing it differently now, but years ago when I started, I don't recall such an email push saying, hey, now it's not like the state does. The state is on you every few months trying to make sure you stay registered. The city doesn't do the same. So I'm saying that to say, I want our community to be in the best light. I don't want to push the disparity study back. However, I would say, I would like to see us, even when we talk about let's now ask for 15%, we haven't seen them do 10% yet. We could ask for 95%. We're not doing 10.
Yeah, but
well, I think that there may be some data that's contrary to that. Just Sharita, well, I can't ask her a question, but I think some of her data as of last year showed minority at over 10% in a certain area, but not total spend.
I would say this honestly and openly, and I'm one of the ones that fuss about the 10%, right? And you'll look up and you only see 3%, right? Or you'll see 5.5 or 6, and they say, "Oh, we're doing better." You know, I'm part of all these little meetings and stuff. Oh, we're doing better. I'd like to see it go to 15%, because then they'll drive them and say, "Okay, we met a 10% goal." It's kind of like a little, you know, you kind of got to play with it. If we raise it up 15%, maybe we'll start trying to get the 10% goal that we've been trying to get.
We call those stretch goals.
Yeah,
Yes.
which
Yes.
we should be easily doing. So I agree with you, Patrice, but that's the way I see it right now. Like, because I want it mandatory. You know, that's my view of it. Because I just think it should be mandatory. It's taxpayers' dollars. Minorities are making up paying the taxes. So that's my little huff and puff about that.
Point taken, point taken. I'm good with the stretch goal. I just want to make sure we present ourselves in the best possible light. So I don't know how we can figure out how we look like we have the most true accounting of Black business when this study is done. I don't know the answer.
So if I could also suggest that, because I don't see it in there, and I put it in the chat, that we have the opportunity to go back to organic growth and development of both minority business and workforce. And that was through the Mayor's Training Center. If nowhere in the 3 recommendations do we recommend, because that's a component that drove Sean Edwards to be a great businessman or progressively a great businessman entering the space that he is in now. And that's through his education and training through that program. So I think we have to anchor this with an opportunity for restoring time-tested and proven models that no longer exist in the city that was a part of this. And so we could do that also through anchoring it through 1, 6, and 8. If we go ahead and take this opportunity, we don't have to add another outcome. We can just embed that outcome into the MBE profile through growth and development. So just a suggestion.
Okay. Anyone else?
Did we
Good
make
discussion.
a recommendation on where the money would come from to do this study?
No, I don't think that's our requirement.
I just asked, are we?
Yeah.
So I would say if you're looking at businesses that typically, I mean, everybody has skin in the game somewhere. I mean, you can, that's easy money. You see a hole in the ground out there, downtown Lexington behind Main Street Baptist Church, right?
Okay.
But Anthony, you know, I would say if we can make suggestions of where we think it should come from, I don't think that hurts. I mean, that was the same thing that Patrice and I did, was that, you know, we not only offered up a countermeasure, but how it could be carried out. So, I mean, I don't think it's a bad thing to make those recommendations.
Right. Well, you know, at one point, you know, I had in there, and I don't know what the answer is, that those organizations, because this could be an opportunity for a community rally. You know, companies like yours who are very forward thinking and certainly understand the value of the minority community to not only the community itself, but also to the bottom line of the organization, may participate in sharing in some of the cost of that. That could be something that comes out as a recommendation, but I don't know where the money comes from. We can offer that, but I do think it still needs to be done. Go ahead, Bishop.
Back to the disparity study. I always have mixed feelings about that, but I believe it needs to be done. But at the same time with that, you know, you have different levels of business. When I say and it's not just minority business, it's just business owners or entrepreneurs anyway. You have some that want to be small, you have some that's self-employed, and they call quote a business, it's just them. And you have to figure out a way to include them, you know. And the reason I'm saying more of the smaller ones, the real small ones, or the self-employed to that nature, is because they're always careful about how they spend their dollars for the tax dollars and their expense. But somehow you got to encourage them, like Sister Patrice was talking about registration with the city and encouraging. Yes, it is an oversight. I've done it myself because there's not a reminder until I go try to pull a permit. Then there it is, I owe some money, right? So we got to figure out how to get everybody registered with the city and comfortable with the city, so they can be a part of the study, which Sister Patrice is saying, right? Because at the same time too, you don't want to bring them in and then actually you put more on them as a small business owner. I'm basically saying being taxed more, or they get pulled into a certain, identified more, then it's more of a bearing on them,
Yep.
right? And then at the same time too, with doing that, the disparity study has to encourage business owners moving forward, encourage business owners to grow. That's why, the structure of my business, that I'm able to use some of the smaller individual contractors, encouraging them, and it's really more financially. And the reason they don't deal with the contracts direct financially is because, one, they don't want the hassle of the paperwork. It's not the education of the paperwork, it's the hassle of it. And then they want to be paid. They don't want to wait 90 days or 60 days, 30 days.
Yeah, they don't have the cash flow to do that. Yeah.
So you got to develop some type of program to where we get, because I would say there are a lot of minority businesses here, and they're smaller, but there's a lot of them that's not willing to take on the risk of sustaining. And it really comes down to money. There's a lot of them that don't want to wait that long to get paid. So that's why they don't chase a lot of contracts or involve a governing body. So the piece of that, I'm in agreement with what you recommended. I think we can move forward, or I'd like to make a motion or something, unless somebody else got something else comment.
Yeah, I was going to comment.
I know Daryl's got another comment, but I'll just say this: keep in mind, the number three, the first three, the highest priority, does not exclude the others. The others, like outcome number 2, is what encourages those other smaller businesses that you were talking about, because you're looking at now the entire spend, right? So go ahead, Daryl.
No, I was just going to quickly say to Bishop's point, we put together this is circa 2010 in partnership with the City of Lexington, a minority business training program. And Sarita could speak to this now, if that's still going on. This is when Marilyn Clark was at the city, and I was doing this work in Fayette around economic development. Now, we trained up minority businesses annually. We took on 10 to 12 every year, and it was working. It was working very well. And there's some businesses that have done very well as a result of that. And we taught things like about bonding capacity and workers' compensation benefits, how to read schedules and plans, all of those things. We were very, very intentional about developing small businesses. Now, the question I have is what happened to that, and why didn't it become better and bigger? And I think if we're going to get what you're talking about, Bishop, more minority businesses skilled up with the competencies and skills to compete in this society, this industry, they have to be able to know their business. But to knowing that business, being educated about the business world, that's what we were doing. We were getting them. Go ahead.
You're right, Daryl. And I was a part of that program. And I actually did the program when I was actually employed with somebody, what was that, probably almost 15 years ago. And other people I know have done that program. There's a lot of businesses that are up to speed, but a little bit, what I'm trying to get at, those businesses, they only want to stay a 1-man or 2-man, 3-man band, okay? And so what happens when you start going to those other contracting husbands, you can only take on so much because it requires so much of their office time. A lot of those guys that do go through that program, but when they go through it and they start and they're saying they want to go in business themselves, they're still with the tool in their hand. And they still, a lot of them gentlemen or young ladies, they want to keep the tool in their hand because that's their passion. So it gets to a point to where, okay, do I want to be a business owner and operate a business while somebody else is working, or do I want to do what I love and paint with my crew? And so that's a little bit, that's what holds back when we talk about small business. You got some that do that, which is good and they monitor, but also it becomes a workload. So not everybody wants to go up and have dreams of being a Fortune 500 company. So that's the only reason I made that comment, is just when we look at this and say, and then and say if everything went well and all of a sudden there's a demand from the city, say, okay, we want minority contractors and everybody's participating, there's going to be a select few. It's going to be a handful. And we got to be careful when we grab that handful that they're not overloaded, because some will be greedy, some won't, I don't know. And then all of a sudden, now here in the city, there's a bad taste in the mouth. Said, well, we tried this and it didn't work out. And it was really all because there was a dump load. And I'm just kind of sharing this, and I'm not going against what you're saying. I just want everybody to understand. And it's no different than the white businesses. There's a lot of individual small white businesses out there, and they don't go off and take and chase the government contracts for the same reason, right? But we are doing is showing the opportunity. Okay, the city is funded by tax dollars. There's a community, there's a minority that's funding 60% of those or 50% of those tax dollars. Okay, but we're not spending that back. So we got to come up with a way to make sure that they get the opportunity in that spend. But you got to remember, a lot of those businesses are not chasing that spend, because what I'll say is that they're comfortable. I know a lot of businesses that they're comfortable, they're happy, they love their family is paid for, they have a nice home, they go on vacations, they living good. So why would they go and chase the contract and then end up taking on some risks that they don't have to? And I know several of them, they tell me that, not everybody has the passion to go and jump out there. I'm just sharing that amongst everybody.
So I agree with you, Bishop, and that's where I think the perfect marriage around this recommendation, this outcome, is that we developed an education program, which again was time tested and prove it early through the Mayor's Training Center, that starts with our youth early, providing them with an understanding of the market. And I understand everybody will not become a business owner, but everybody needs to work. And so it also builds work ethic. And so if you can do that early and do it often, we'll turn the communities around in the city of Lexington. So if we can help revitalize our own communities, that is by growing and developing young people early. And then those who decide to become businesses, send them through the minority business program. So we've got this continuation of education and training that leads to opportunities. And I think you get a mix of all of that. So I think we have to pair, again, what was time tested and proven through education and training, which was the Mayor's Training Center, with the opportunity to transition some of those people through the business education program and so on. So I'm not saying exclusively one or the other. I think we marry those things together.
Go ahead, Reggie.
Yeah, Anthony, with all due respect to Bishop, I'm sure that there are those businesses that want to stay small and want to be a 1, 2, or 3 member band. But what I want to focus on, Anthony, are those young entrepreneurs that want to grow and become the next dominant contractor in the Southeast or in America. And so I want them to be able to have an opportunity to grow and take advantage of all the opportunities that are out there. And by going to 15%, which I said I'm strongly supportive of, I want to give those businesses a chance to grow and expand and do well.
You're right, and that's exactly why we're not just stopping with the 3. We're including all of them, because a lot of those that you're talking about that want to get to the next level, they can't do it without some level of funding as well. So that's why that recommendation is still moving forward, because you can't get to where you need to be in your next stage of growth. Sometimes you need an injection of capital to get you to that point. So that's why that also needs to stay in there. And we got about 2 minutes left on this, and I need to give Sharon her time. Go ahead, Bishop.
Awesome. One other thing, and I didn't know if we made a note up under there, but I think a recommendation, or it can come up with something later, which I kind of touched base on, is the certification or verification of the minority business.
Yeah, how you verify.
Yeah. And it's not, I don't want the true minority business to get overlooked because there's not a tool in place that can be utilized by the city, and maybe with that, maybe being that we may try, that the city's trying to do something unique, that they can come up with some type of benefit or utilizing Tri-State, but letting them know, okay, we just need them as this tool. What kind of cost reduction or benefit can we get and offer to these people? So Tri-State can do the legwork, and they can get their certification, but they're not paying this outrageous fee, you know, which typically it's, and it can grow, but it shouldn't apply to them. You know, the skin color is brown, you know, the birth certificate says black, you know, but at the same time, we got to bring in another organization that says, okay, let's prove this. You know,
that you're 51% or more.
Around whatever. So
well,
I just want to make sure that doesn't, I don't want to leave anybody out.
Yeah. And just to say this really quickly, I don't, somehow what we just got from Sharita this week was the entire spend, okay? And it clearly identified, we're talking about even people who have pro cards, it identifies minority businesses. Somehow they're being identified and certified without having to go through that program. So go ahead, Sister Patrice.
What I was going to say is that part of this conversation, when you've got a smaller group of people like you do in the city of Lexington, this city is not that large. We're at 300,000 people. So that means the number of businesses aren't going to be that many. Mm-hmm. That I'm part of the NNPA, the National Newspaper Publishers Association, and that's a Black organization. And in order to be admitted, we had to send a photo of the business owners who are registered so that they could see us, but then also 2 letters of verification or recommendation, meaning that I took the time to sit down with a publisher in Detroit or sat down with another publisher in Chicago, and people who are already members said that, yes, I am Black, and based on their interview of me, I am registered, that I am actually operating this business, that is not a shell corporation.
And it wasn't expensive, right? You were able to do that without it being
expensive. That was absolutely free. I mean, it costs to join it, but I didn't have to go through that because they know. Same thing with in the newspaper industry, some people have audited circulation, which costs a lot of money, but sometimes they will allow you to submit your printer's receipt, how many papers you're printing. They don't know if you're throwing them all in the dumpster, but at least you went through the process of paying for these particular papers. So I'm saying there's all sorts of alternative ways that the city should not have to put an undue burden on people, that they can be creative with that. But I don't know if, I really want to make this like recommendations for dummies, and that's no disrespect to the mayor and city council, but I really don't want us to give them something and it feels like rocket science to them, and then they don't do it because they have no idea how to pull it off. So as detailed as we need to be, if we need to talk about alternative ways of verifying whether somebody is a Black-owned business, I want to go that far, because again, I don't want this to sit because they didn't know what to do with it, because this isn't their wheelhouse and this is ours.
Good. Okay. Well, I think this has been great discussion, and I think that there's going to be some more work. I'll probably be talking with several of you who've worked on these throughout the week to fine tune it, get it together where we've got it in a format, and we've got the kinds of information we think supportive that will make this go. But I think great work. Sharon, I want to make sure you have your hour. It's 2:02.
All right, let's go.
Good.
I'm ready, you guys. Okay, so you guys, we put a lot of work into this, and again, I want to thank you guys because I think that we're working really hard to make sure that we're having a good product to go forward. And so I want you to lend your eyes to the document where, if you remember, we put a section that said intersection of economic development and education. So I want to lend your eyes to that, because once we separated that out on my chart, we're going to have 2 number 1s, right? So this is in a section all by itself. But I want you guys to look down to outcome number 6. And we need to merge those because those 2 things actually go together. And so instead of having those in separate outcomes or separate recommendations, those will be combined into one solid, strong recommendation where they each support each other. You good with that? I see Patrice is studying it. And that was one of the strong recommendations from Reggie. But I think if we put those 2 together, I think they're going to complement each other, and that's going to make that recommendation even stronger. And so if I had to follow in suit of, yes. Reggie?
I thought you were, I do want to say something about, I thought you were finished. I'll wait till you're finished.
No, go ahead.
You know, Sharon, as I've said before, the few times I've talked, I'm a big proponent of gathering facts and testimony. I think one thing we should know, I'm in full agreement with your recommendation. Every major speaker we had in the education front, from what I think was Dr. Grisham, who was first, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Grisham Brown, and then was it Allison? I can't think of her name. Who was second?
Allison Davis.
Allison Davis was second, and then Lieutenant Governor was third. Okay. What really struck me, Sharon, and I think we need to emphasize this, is that all three of them independently, without any familiarity of what the other had said before them or after them, all led off by the fact that to eliminate barriers to racism and to eliminate the systemic discrimination in education, you have to have early child education. All of them say independently. And I mean, I've always felt that way and argued that, but to have all three of them say that independently, I think that has to be the foundation for saying this has to be our number one outcome.
And so Reggie, when you read the action statement, I think, is that you're going to read that, Sharon?
No, I was not going to read that today.
I think that will answer, or even not even answer, just provide Senator Thomas with what we have been thinking from a small group perspective about how we're going to address that. Now, better than any to go ahead and just read it, I guess. You all agree or disagree?
So I guess everybody's saying that they're good with this being, I hadn't pitched it yet, but if we're all good with this being from education, with this being our number one recommendation, then there won't be any reason to belabor it. We'll just move on down. But I did see the significance in combining those two to make sure that that is a solid recommendation. So we'll do that. That'll be one. Then the next one that I thought would be recommendation number 2 is going to be the one that we have on outcome number 2. And I'd like to see if anybody has any opposition to that, because I think that recommendation 1, recommendation 2, that goes together, because you won't see that forward movement. And we've had conversations about this, and the guest speakers have also confirmed and talked about this, and the data shows that this is an important component. Daryl, what say you?
I say remove the parentheses that says hopefully, because Fayette County must continue to do the same thing that the rest of our city partners are doing. We're doing it. That's what Marilyn Clark's job is to do, is to progress. And we put in some other measurements, but we want to make sure that ours is not as passive there. So we don't want to be in parentheses. We want to be in the whole list of other entities.
Daryl, I'm sorry, Daryl, what do you
you're up in economic, and you're right. Those parentheses will go, but you're up in economic.
Yeah, so I read number 2, outcome number 2 in the wrong area. But yeah, since you're there, since you're there, go ahead and correct that though. We don't want to be in parentheses.
I thought I was on the wrong one. Hey, Daryl, look under the education number 2.
All right, I got it.
Lost. I'm lost all over again. So
yeah, Daryl, what is
the third recommendation, or is this the second one? I missed one.
What do you see hopefully? What do you see hopefully, Daryl? I don't see that. What do you see?
So in that was under the economic development outcome. Yeah, that's
number 2.
So number 2, it says in parentheses, hopefully FCPS will be doing the same thing, that we strike that language out of there before we even send it forward, and just make us a part of the whole list of expectations. So we fixed that one without me. I got us in the wrong place, but in the right place, I guess.
Okay, just so we're back on track, we're looking under the education part of the chart. And so Daryl's eyes went to the wrong number 2, but now we're going to be, the first recommendation is a combination of the one in the special category that Patrice and I created, along with number 6, combining those to make one recommendation. The
Agreed.
second recommendation that we're looking for is the one that's on your chart as listed as number 2, because you need this in order for recommendation number 1 to fully come together.
Can you read number 2, please? What does your number 2 say?
It starts with institute.
Okay, thank you. All right.
So Sharon, you want to combine 1 and 2, or
what I want to do is number 6.
number 6? Okay.
Number 6, and then the number 1 that's in that special category of intersection of economic development and education. We want to combine those 2 for 1 recommendation.
Okay, so I think we need to make sure everybody understands we're looking at 3 different sections here. One we've already done, which is economic development.
Yeah.
The next one is intersection of economic development and education. And then there's education. I think that's where we were getting confused, because there were 3 different sections here.
Yeah. So in the number 1 under intersection of economic development and education, that number 1 along with number 6, to combine that into 1 recommendation.
And so Sharon, to your point, the part about recommendation number 6 deals with the work that First 5 Lex does. And are you all familiar with the First 5 Lex, 0 to birth to 5? Can we make reference to some of that, since we're not throwing a dart in the dark? We already know that work is being done, but emphasizing some greater focus on ensuring that this is connected. So that's our research behind this recommendation. I just didn't want to leave it unrecognized, because there is some work being done.
And so that information will be in the narrative. I know First 5 Lex well. I'm one of the founding members of that. Worked with the school district on that. So that'll be part of the narrative that we'll include to support that.
Excellent.
So now that we understand how we're combining those 2 into 1, what I'm recommending for discussion for you guys is for the second recommendation to be outcome number 2 that is listed under the education.
And Sharon, what's your third one? That way I can tell how hard I want to argue.
Number 1. Number 1. It's number 1.
The third outcome?
The third outcome would be number 1, right above number 2.
What? I'm sorry.
Look, are you looking at outcome number 2?
I understand what you're saying, Sharon. I follow you. I follow you.
Yeah.
Reggie, you just caught up. Hold on now.
Okay, Bishop. Check
Just,
this out.
okay, hold on. Do me a favor.
Yes.
What is your recommendation? 1, 2, 3, right now. Go.
It is going to be 1 under.
Yes.
Number 1 under intersection and economic development and education.
Okay.
It's going to be number 2. The second recommendation would be number 2. The third recommendation would be number 1, right above number 2.
Okay.
Got it?
And you're merging outcome number 6 under education into the outcome number 1, which is the intersection.
Right. You got it. Got that. Now that we've cleared that up.
I don't recall any conversation about, maybe I missed the conversation about outcome number 2, because I need more context of how the mayor can affect that, and how this committee, that's going to be a direct ask of the mayor.
Aaron, you want to speak to that?
So I can try to speak to that. Y'all, I'm just going to be very honest and transparent. This has been a really tough couple of weeks for us. getting ready at the college, ending a summer program. I've been working late nights, and I have a 4-year-old that I have to keep up with. So in regards to that outcome, I know Rochelle had some suggestions in regards to family literacy and for financial literacy, and my focus was more on family literacy and how those programs. We had a conversation last week about adult basic education, which is now Skills U, and those programs being underfunded and actually an extreme amount of divestment from the state. So access to GED programs, ESL programs, as well as just family literacy in general. Family literacy does not exist anymore through adult basic education programs. So that fits in together with early childhood programs in the sense that when, families that are trying to get a level up and educate, get the credentialing that they need to be able to get the jobs that they want, aren't able to do so due to affordability of childcare, but then also lack of within those settings, those adult education settings, lack of engagement of the full family. So it goes hand in hand, with having access to that high quality childcare and preschool education, along with, access to a funded and equivalent adult literacy program that engages literacy at all levels, from the child to the adult.
And I agree. Rochelle really advocated for the financial literacy piece in terms of building wealth. And I remember several weeks ago when we talked about that, we all felt that was the best place that it fit. So yeah, that's a good.
Yeah. So to the point about what can the mayor do about it, I think was Patrice's question. And again, this is adult education. From the school district perspective, we put in a few systems in our CSI schools and promising academies around, we call them parent academies. And what we did was partner with BCTC through their, what we call it GED and GED Plus. And that was to create a dual generational approach for supporting the student, as well as getting those families who had not completed high school or an equivalency, the opportunity to go back and get a GED. And that's the program that's happening now. Again, the question becomes, how do you do it? What is the mayor's role and responsibility to that? Because this is happening in the community. That doesn't happen inside the school day. This happens outside the school day. And so our question becomes, how can we increase that? We just did it in our Promise Academies. That's just 6 schools. We've got 67 plus schools and programs across the city. How can we expand that opportunity, create funding for those families to go to BCTC and participate in a program like that? So that would be the question, and I guess the measure of success for what do we drive this outcome and the goal to be.
And then also, go ahead, Erin.
No, I was just going to say, in my research, what I've found is there are different funding models in other cities of similar size to Lexington, and one follows this idea of a promise program, and usually those promise programs help fund like college education. So like to the Tennessee Promise, for example, they have the state level program that funds like 2 years of community college education, but it's a last dollar in program. So you have to fill out the FAFSA, which that's a whole nother issue of equity. But there's a city level program where the city promises kind of complement what the state is doing. Now, our state has the Work Ready Scholarship that is focused on jobs in high demand industries that will actually result in a living wage and the ability for the family to have upward mobility and long-term job prospects. The program, though, again, it's last dollar in. So sometimes it doesn't make sense for high school students to get it, but it's more geared toward an adult learner or a non-traditional learner who may not have the same access to financial aid. But with that in mind, like that particular program only focuses on certain work areas and vocations. It's not overarching. So in this case, our recommendation could be for the city to begin to research on, what kind of funding could be geared towards, as Mr. Thompson was suggesting, really doubled down and uplifting this opportunity for creating more GED plus and adult literacy programs within the Fayette County area, not just the 6 Promise schools. So creating a Lexington Promise, but not, it doesn't necessarily have to start at the associate's level of education. It can look at GED and then beyond.
I have a question. But I just want to make sure too, I guess Patrice is the one that asked for more detailed backup. My question is a little bit overall about the discussion. So I just want to make sure Patrice is good. Okay. So not in particular to the subject matter that we was just talking to, but overall, we're talking about education. And the way I understand it right now, and I think it came up before, is right now Lexington Fayette County urban government, besides a funded program, they're not technically responsible for education, right? So the target goal, I really think, one, you have to pull in the early childhood, which I'm definitely in agreement. And then two, and I'm just putting it in my order, okay, is Fayette County Public Schools. Somehow, which I'm not saying Fayette County Public Schools are not doing it, but I think one of the biggest things that we brought up is the teachers, is getting the minority teachers in the school system. And the reason I say that is because I think a little bit what we was going to is that, okay, if you're able to understand more of that communication level within the school system, right, that means that these kids are staying in school, right? That means that they're learning in school. So they should be able to have more interest in school and graduating and learning a little bit more, whether it's a business opportunity or how they're gonna move forward. So from starting at early childhood to the next level, okay, as Fayette County Public Schools, you have to target them and figure out how to encourage them to, like, okay, what are they going to do to change this? Because it's not just the city, it's economic and education, which it falls on Fayette County Public Schools.
So that's why the recommendation that that's why it's really a disjustice to this whole committee to be able to squeeze the knowledge of an education into the short period of time they've asked us to deliver a high quality recommendation. I'll say that up front, because what we talked about early, the achievement gap does not begin when they get to Fayette County Public Schools. If you understand that in detail, not just in surface, 0 to 3 to 5, and how poverty and socioeconomics are factored into that, as well as the 400 years of injustice that's been placed on people of color, Blacks particularly. You can't make a blanket statement like that, because the system did not create itself. The system was created intentionally to keep you from being educated. You act like the finish line started and everybody started the finish line at the same time. You cannot do that to yourself or anybody else that's listening on this call. The system has been broken and has been broken since this country was founded. And we continue to perpetuate that because we do not fund early childhood. Early childhood is not when they start at Fayette County Public Schools or Jefferson County Public Schools. It's the parenting, it's at home. And poverty so you have to fix that. You have to start at the root cause.
And I understand that, Daryl. Daryl, I'm not going against the early childhood education. What I'm saying is too, okay, now you've done the early childhood.
We haven't done it.
No, listen, Daryl. Now that we focus on the early childhood, we want to make an improvement there, okay? Once they go and start in public school system, we as the education partner, I'm saying we have to address that. I'm not targeting Fayette County Public Schools and saying, well, we have been put on a commission, okay, now we're looking at the city, what are you gonna do as far as education, right? It's no different than look at the suspension rate. I know there's mixed views about that, right, and the tolerance. What are we doing to keep these kids in school? I'm not talking specifically about the education gap or whatever from when it starts in early childhood.
I think we're conflating the issues though. We can't mix issues.
I'm not mixing the issue. I'm not mixing the issue. There's the outcome. It's the early childhood. We all in agreement. I want that to be number one, Daryl, and everybody else. Okay, we agreed to that. Okay. What I'm saying is that Lexington Fayette County urban government is not responsible for Fayette County public schools, but you're asking us what else we're gonna do for education outside of funding programs for early childhood education.
So I think again, that's a conflict in the
I want to weigh in on this.
issues.
Anthony, I want to weigh in on, or Sharon, I want to weigh in on this.
Yes.
Okay. Let me stick a pin in what Daryl and Bishop are saying for a minute and go back to Patrice and Aaron's point. Because I think here's the point. This helps illuminate the discussion that Bishop and Daryl are having. Okay. Aaron, I think it's important for you to say that the city spends over $7 million a year on education. Okay. I want you to say that. Okay. Because I mean, I haven't gone through the whole 500-page budget of the city, but I have spent some time looking at it. And when you look at what they spend on youth services, on Lex Arts, on cultural arts, the city spends money on education, okay? And I think your argument, I question, let me be honest with myself, I question financial literacy very early on as to whether that's something we ought to do. But you sold me on that, Aaron. But I want this report to note, Sharon, that the city spends about $7 million on education, and some of that should be used to promote financial literacy.
I agree with you. And just to kind of circle back to the question that Patrice asked earlier, when you're talking about the whole family approach, you're talking about all of it together. You're talking about education. You're talking about financial literacy. You're talking about soft skills. You're talking about how to helping people learn how to complete a job application. But even before that, how to do a resume. And perhaps what the goal is here, because we have a lot of nonprofits working together in a lot of cases, and then working in silos. And then what we need to really do in the community, from my opinion, is instead of reinventing the wheel, is turning to those different nonprofit organizations who specialize in job training, who specialize in bringing those people together so we can get together collectively to help move those families while those children are receiving that early childhood education and all of that. Have those families setting goals and working on goals to develop themselves and move themselves forward, and so that you have everybody moving forward at the same time. But if we leave that out, and I think if we leave out the whole family approach or the whole child approach, or whatever terminology we're deciding to call that, if we don't move that family and help increase the amount of money that's coming into that household, the amount of skills that are available to that household, if we don't help increase that, we're going to be struggling so far down the road when we're trying to work with this child. If you're moving only a part of it, it's like moving the front wheels of your car, but the back is not going.
I totally agree. It wasn't spelled out on the page. So once it gets fully, and I understand your time restraint, total respect for what you're doing, Aaron. So when I see that, now that makes sense. And this may be something that gets moved over to that intersectional section that we have, because there is a part of this that goes, and I like this conversation was very fruitful, because what Reggie pointed out also was we have this document that shows $7 to $8 million spent toward education by the city of Lexington. I don't think taxpayers even know that. Exactly, that, we know we're paying taxes to FCPS, but we don't realize how much of our city budget ends up being spent on youth activities. And so I think that a portion of that money, I'd like for us to put a dollar amount on it, as Reggie says. We could put a dollar amount on that, how much we would like to see spent. And maybe this is something that could turn into a grant, that we've got organizations that are already working on this, that they can apply for this money to increase their capacity. Because I know the city of Lexington was doing something in Maddie Morton's department that had to do with young men who were over a certain age, being able to get them GEDs and training and things like that. There are a few programs like that. And there was even a small grant that the city of Lexington got, that I know Louisville got more money, but they got something about getting the young men involved in community service, et cetera. I know Daryl, I'm sure you chomping at the bit. I bet you know the name of that one.
It was the Fellows Program, but that came from philanthropy through the William R. Keenan Foundation, not from the city budget. I'm just
saying that I think the city has some hard dollars that can be set aside for that. And I think it is right that, again, this is the whole family approach. This is the way that the mayor can have an impact on, you know, one of the things I remember one of your predecessors over at Community Action said, Sharon, but it was about getting people to self-sufficiency, that, you know, instead of just giving people a donation every year, that you see the same people coming back year after year for money, is because nobody's helped them upgrade their life. And this is an opportunity, as we're upgrading your children's life, for us to upgrade your life as well. So I like it. I think it's a great recommendation.
And so if I can, give me 10 seconds, Senator Thomas, real quick.
No, you go first. You go first.
You didn't put a big enough pinhole in that balloon that you was gonna burst me and Bishop out of. But no, to Bishop's point, here's what I would say to that, his points. Take those issues and bring those issues to the Fayette County Board of Education and the superintendent. Don't take them to the mayor. The mayor has no role in into the issues that you brought before this committee. That's not this committee's recommendation. Take it to the governing and the promulgating body that's responsible for making those changes, and that is the Fayette County Board of Education and the superintendent. We will gladly, I promise you, listen to those concerns and address them.
Patrice, I'll defer to you first. Go ahead, Patrice.
Well, to Daryl's point, that may be something we consider as a group. When we finish this, we need to show up to a city council meeting as a unit and say, look, here's all these issues that were brought to us, that came across our desk, that we came up with, and we want to see you address these as well, and how can we help?
That's what I'm saying, Daryl, that's what I'm saying, as a unit, as a group, and as a city. I'm not saying the mayor can directly do something about it, but everybody, the mayor put together a commission that's supposed to include everything. But us looking at this, we're saying, well, really, majority of our comments and statements can only focus on Lexington Fayette Urban County government. Lexington Fayette Urban County government didn't alone create the injustice that's going on within the city or the community. They didn't do it by themselves, okay? Or if they had any input in it, you know what I mean? So outcome number 3 mentioned something about Fayette County Public Schools. That's why I bring it up.
Yeah, that's why this is a big bite, big bite off the elephant that we can't all swallow in one bite. We're gonna have to do this.
Daryl, hey, what I'm saying, take that shirt off of yours right now. Take that shirt off.
Okay. Reggie, go ahead.
Sharon, here's what I want you to do. Okay.
Let me see.
Given the city's budget, I want your third recommendation or your second recommendation, whatever, to say that the city ought to revise its budget and allocate $1 million annually toward the whole family approach. So again, I don't think Daryl and Bishop are that far apart. We're not. I don't think they're that far apart. But I think if the city wants to know what it can do to end systemic discrimination and go back to Daryl's point, get us all to the starting line equally, the city I am moving that you say that under your
recommendation.
Yeah, outcome number 2, the city ought to allocate $1 million in its budget toward the whole family approach and dealing with these issues of getting children ready for early child education and getting them from birth to 5.
I'll gladly include that, but here's what I also want to say. There will be notes in because like I told you, I have received information and had conversations with people that have contacted me directly from the community about this. And there are things that we will be putting notes in because I don't want the community to think that we're not listening to their voice. For example, when it comes to, take your eyes to that number. When it comes to outcome number 4 under education, we believe that is an important thing that needs to be tackled. We believe that, but we also believe that belongs to Fayette County Public Schools. And so we're going to put in the note that this was, you know, I've heard this at least 10 or 12 times from different people in the community that they want this addressed. So this will go in, it will not come out. It will go in as a note that, yes, we agree that this is important, but this is a Fayette County school. This needs to go back to Fayette County Public Schools. And so, you know, so don't, any of these things that we don't necessarily think is under the mayor's purview, that item can be listed as a note in the report that we submit.
Yeah, yeah. And we've talked before about this. It's a very important point that we were brought to this situation because of what's been happening in the community. And while everything may not be under the purview of the mayor per se, the mayor does have convening power. And when this document comes forward and comes to her and the council, this is the community speaking. It's not, you know, we're citizens of this community. We're not just our individuals who represent certain organizations here. We're citizens of this community. And so we have, by way of information, data, research, and input from the community, come up with these recommendations. So the community's coming with this document. It's just not us here that you see on this Zoom call.
Yes, Bishop.
I have a question, Sharon.
Sure.
At the end of the day, and I think I brought this up kind of within the first meeting, and we experienced this definitely going to experience it this year or last year and the year to come. Everything that we're asking from that needs to be basically it comes down to finance put back into the community, right? How are we going to mandate this, that this does not get cut when it comes time for budget cut? Reggie, that's the piece I want to know. Like, because like if Daryl brought up, everybody else has brought up, there was once upon a time a program that recognizes every discussion that we have had about education, and it's been cut, right? So now we are where we are now. So how are we going to make sure that that it never gets cut again? And I know people got to show up at the council meeting and stuff like that, but it shouldn't be that easy. Is what I want to point out. So how can we make it where it's not that easy?
I think it was those programs were vulnerable because they had one figurehead, and if that particular figurehead was not popular or because of the way they managed it, there were people who fell out with that. If we keep it dispersed, I feel like this is a way to make sure that we're able to sustain it, because maybe we don't have $5 million for the mayor's training center. Maybe we don't have $3 million to rerun micro city government. Maybe we have $250,000 to put toward GED programs, and maybe we've got $100,000 to put towards something like this. I think if we keep the intent the same with the best of what we want out of it, we'll be able to get something done. But you know, I don't think our recommendation should be to reinstitute something with baggage that's already got baggage, that's already got history. Yeah,
I'm sorry, I'm not going backwards. I want to move forward. I don't want them to agree to this and to get funded for 2 years, and then after 2 years, when it comes budget review time, it gets cut. That's
why we need the educational liaison position, because if the city's got this pool of money, they should look at it every single year and say, how does it need to be spent? Right now, in the midst of COVID, we're not spending any money on after school programs. I don't know what the people are doing in parks and recreation. I'm not saying I don't want them to not be paid, but I'm saying
they're not doing it.
They
didn't get hired.
Right, there's other work that they should be able to do that may be helpful to this cause, but if we had someone who was directing it, then we might be able to say where they could be best utilized. So maybe, you know, that's I think the education liaison position, which was recommendation number 1, okay, the third one, but number 1 under education, I don't know, something like that, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. Reggie, would you like to respond to Bishop?
No.
No. I mean, well, I mean, I didn't see the need to respond. I mean, look, if you feel government is acting wrongfully or acting inappropriately, I mean, you can't, you can't mandate something doesn't get cut, but you see something getting cut, then you do need to speak out. And we should never forget that ultimately we are in charge because you have the vote. And if you think elected officials not acting in your best interest, then you can vote that elected official out.
Okay, thank you guys. So let me ask you this. Of the three, we know that we have 7 on here. Of the 3 that we've discussed today, is the group in favor of those being listed as our top 3, and all of the remaining, all of the other recommendations are going to be listed as well? We're good with that? Okay. Is there any more discussion with education?
I just want to add really quickly that the data that we've asked for from the Council on Post-Secondary Education will be sent to me Monday. Due to the detail we've asked for, it's taking them a little longer to sort through. So that's why there's not been much movement there in regards to retention and completion of students of color.
Okay. Thanks, Erin. Yes, Reggie.
Sure, I do have something. I see Rochelle's been on the entire time, and she's not said one word. So I would like for you and Anthony
I'm here.
to ask her to weigh in on this. She's an important part of our committee. So I'd like you and Anthony to ask her to let us know what she thinks.
Well, I mean, at this point, I don't have a thought to offer so much as I do have a question, and I've been trying to find the right moment to be able to jump in and ask it. Because one of the specific things I was asked to follow up on was Sister Patrice's feedback from our town hall, where she and several others, even during this call, have mentioned the Mayor's Training Center as a potential, I guess, vehicle for some of these things. And that's something I've been trying to work on this week, but I have really been spinning my wheels trying to get information about the Mayor's Training Center. I'm not familiar with it personally. I've reached out to Chris Ford because he was mentioned in the email exchange as a potential resource, and I'm waiting to hear back. But I just wonder if anybody else has a resource they can point me to. I can't find anything on the internet or anything about the Mayor's Training Center, so I can try to, figure out how we could loop that into our suggestions here as a potential. Like we keep asking, what is the city's ability to do something here? And if the Mayor's Training Center is something that we see that's a resource that the city has to incorporate some of our, I guess our financial literacy or other educational, aspects from like, ground up, from early childhood up to adult. I just need to find more information about it so I can make an informed recommendation back to the group.
Rochelle, let me help you out on that right away. I
Okay.
don't know, Anthony, you may help me. I don't know if Arnold Gaither is still in town, but I know Roy Woods is, and Roy was like the number 2 man on the Mayor's Training Center. I can give you Roy Woods' contact information. You can contact him. Roy can give you a wealth of information on the Mayor's Training Center. Really, that was
Okay.
one of the best programs we ever had. I don't know how to get in contact with you after we leave here, but get my phone number from Sharon or Anthony. Call me, and I'll give you Roy Wood's contact information.
And we have a list too of all of the committee members' phone numbers, contact information.
Yeah, I sent my phone number out in a to the whole group when it first came out also, and I'm in the email chain. Definitely, I'm getting all the emails.
Okay, so with that, Anthony, I think it looks like we might end up not going over 2 hours today. I'm going to turn it back over to you to close us out.
I saw another hand though, Bishop. See.
Hey, we can get out of here. I just want to say, and I know I asked, and this is not about extending conference calls or Zoom meetings, but what is being put in place to sustain what the mayor has created now? I guess these subcommissions and committees.
Okay. Yeah. No, Sharon, I'll take a stab at what they talked about this week, Sharon, and then you fill in for where I miss, okay?
Sure.
That was one of the topics of discussion with the co-chairs. And as they have their frequent meetings with the mayor, all of us are saying, we're going to give a report, and that report's going to give some strong recommendations, and who's going to shepherd it through the process to implement the things that have been indicated in the report. They're talking about that. They're trying to figure that out. There has been some thought of some of us, if I'm not wrong, Sharon, continuing to be individuals who are authorized to continue to follow up on some of these things. And you just got to think, we're talking about education, economic development, but we got folks dealing with justice and law enforcement, and you know, there's some people want to see some stuff happen. I don't know what that answer, the final answer is yet, but every time we talk more about it with the co-chairs, I mean, I'm more than happy to share it with you. But did I do that right, Sharon? Is there anything else I left out?
You did do that right. But I think that what Bishop is looking for, and I could be wrong, Bishop wants to make sure that this goes through, and if it goes through, that it's not cut in a year or two.
Yeah.
When funding could be, you know, strained and all of that. And if the answer that you're looking for is there's going to be be a way to 100% ensure that that is not going to happen to one or more of any of these recommendations, I don't think any of us can give you that.
Yeah. And it's not, and I'm not speaking specifically of the recommendations. Just even as a committee, and has anything been brought up and saying, okay, we like I pointed out before, okay, we finally recognize the crisis. This crisis has been going on for forever, right? Us jumping on the Zoom call for the past 3 months or 2 months, however long it's been, and then letting it dissolve is not going to get anything done, right? So why wouldn't the subcommittees, and it doesn't particularly, because I'm not saying I'm speaking for everybody saying to type your time, why wouldn't the subcommittee stay idle? There's different people that can rotate in and out. It doesn't have to be necessarily be their own Zoom call. It can kind of be done on their own thing, like Anthony referred to, as far as somebody keeping that window open line of communication out there, and being able that it's like I think everybody kind of brought up before indirectly is, besides showing up at a council meeting, what's a pathway of sharing information on what's going on, you know, with the city? Besides reaching out to the direct council member, what's another pathway to speak about this injustice that's going on, right? And that's something that's not, I know it's not going to get answered amongst us. I'm just saying, when y'all talking to the mayor, hey, you know, after you get our points, there's all of this that people have come, and you know, there's other people that felt like they should have been a part, been asked to be on this committee that was not. You know, giving them the opportunity to, hey, be a part of something, get their views, get their input, and make sure it's pushing forward. You know, and it's all, I look at it as volunteering, but that's all. Just don't want it to dissolve overnight, you know.
And honestly, Bishop, I think that that's what they're trying to figure out, you know, during that conversation. What does this look like going forward? You know, because as you know, whatever it looks like, you know, it's going to require a lot of time and commitment, as we've seen with the number of hours that we've all spent researching and meeting and talking, and you know, trying to make sure that we're doing the best that we can do to bring forth the best recommendations that we can. And I just think that they're really trying to figure out how to get that going, because a lot of people have the same concerns about, you know, whether this is going to fizzle out or whether this is going to sit on the shelf. And, you know, the mayor has not told me personally that that's not going to happen, but she has, you know, she has said that she is invested in, you know, doing whatever she can do. And so I think we take that with the spirit with which she says it, and try to get something in place so that it doesn't fizzle out and it doesn't end up on a shelf with a lot of people saying, I told you so.
Yeah. And honestly, I know that they're watching, because they do, but we will make sure that we bring these points up in our next conversation with them on Thursday.
Yes.
Yes, sir, Reginald.
Yeah, Bishop, because I'm in a political environment, there are some easy ways to tell whether whether the legislature or the city council hears you. I mean, we'll know a year from now whether the council has passed an ordinance saying we want to set a goal of 15% money spent toward African American business. We'll know that in a year, okay? Whether they do that or not. And we'll know how serious they are. We will know in a year. Patrice and Sharon have said the city ought to have an educational liaison person who oversees the money that's spent, and I'm saying it should be $1 million toward the whole family approach. We'll know by this time next year when the city adopts its budget whether that's true or not, okay? And then we can see where the city and the mayor was serious about forming this racial justice and equity commission or not. So there's some measurable things that we've put into our recommendation.
You correct, Reggie. You are correct. I'm speaking more so it's not just the topics, it's that the voice is still being heard. Okay, and this is maybe a little bit off record, right? But just because I'm black or brown or whatever, I'm not white, does not mean everybody that looks like me has the same views or interest of what they want to see done with the city, right? We're all, I'm black, brown, or whatever. Yes, we have been, some type of social injustice has been put on us, right? But at the same time, we have one council member within the area that may not look like you, right? So now you got to speak in that voice. That's the chain of command, how it gets through the city. Basically, what I'm saying is, this ain't going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen over 5 years. So I'm almost looking at this subcommittee or whatever structure she put together should last, for a period of time throughout the city. And really, it should never go away. And it doesn't have to be 10, 20 people on the committee, but it's a pathway to where people in the community can talk directly to the mayor without going through their councilman or without showing up to the council meeting. It's basically a backdoor pathway is what I'm saying.
Bishop, to your point, in 1980s, that's how the Equity Council got started. There were no other equity councils in the Commonwealth. Fayette County had the only model. Jefferson County just added one last year. And I say that to say, PG mentioned it. If he was on here, he could speak to it because he's one of the founders of it. That body, I promise you, over the past 40 years, 30 years, however the number is, has made some substantial changes that in this school district as a result of their presence, all right? Over time, I'll tell you, change is slow, and I promise you it's slow. But the results of that committee, and that committee still exists as the only standing committee to the board other than a finance committee that has the opportunity for members of the community. This is a community-based group to have their voices heard. And so I would suggest, and I support the recommendation that out of this moment in time that the mayor establishes a standing committee made up of diverse members of the community with this focus, solely with this focus on racial justice and equity, not what the city council is doing, but what they see as the issues within the city. That's a great recommendation to the mayor that when we look back 30 years from now, we can say this happened in time, and as a result, that committee is still functioning. When that mayor is gone, that committee is still functioning. When the next mayor is gone, that committee is still functioning. And I promise you, if you look back at the work of the Equity Council and the people who we're still standing on the shoulders of those people. Many have died and gone away, but the work is still being done as a result of what they put in place. Some people may find it ineffective because they don't see the work that comes out of it, because they want to see instant moments in time. They want to see instant gratification the moment they complain that change happens. Change is very slow and it requires a lot of policy and behavior practice changes. But I promise you that model works, and it has worked in Fayette County. If that was the same model put in the city, you will see it over time yield its results.
Yeah, it's a systematic change, and that helps to deal with systematic racism. So it's got to be something that lives beyond individuals and continues to function.
Agreed.
Great point.
Good point. All right, Anthony. We ready?
Thank you all. I think Sharon wanted me to close it out. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Wait. So is this the end? Are we saying goodbye for now? Like, what is this? So this is our last meeting. Like, we're just saying we're adjourned and gone.
Oh, you're right.
A whole lot of hours. I need a little more closure than.
No, you're right. You're right. You're right. Go ahead.
Absolutely. She's absolutely right. We're like, time out. So we were supposed to have 4 meetings. We added an additional 5th meeting, and this was it, so that we could rank and prioritize our recommendations. And now we have a lot of work that has to, and so although this is our last meeting, we have a lot of work that has to go on behind the scenes to get the document drafted. And so we will be calling on you guys to help us get that document drafted. So that we'll be able to submit the recommendations in the format that they're asking us for. But as far as our meeting, this is our last and final virtual meeting, I believe.
So what happens to the ones that didn't rise to the top? Because we've got several that I know my name's attached. And so what does ongoing mean? I have no idea what that means.
I said they're all going. We're going to recommend all of them.
All of them.
Sister Patrice, I would say this: anything related to education, please bring it to the Board of Education. We will address them. So anything that the mayor has no responsibility for that has not bubbled up into our top 3 related to education, bring them to the board, bring them to the Equity Council. We're going to reconvene the Equity Council next month and start having the Zoom meetings from there. These issues can be brought before that group. In fact, I've already talked with the chair about taking some of the charges that we've discussed here and making those charges of the Equity Council so that we can move the issues forward from our space. So even though this might be done, you all have certainly created a sense of urgency around some issues that we've been dealing with that now need to be addressed. And so we certainly will take up our role and responsibility to support the conversations that are taken here.
Thank you, Daryl. That's great. Yeah, I did not do that. Well, I apologize, you all. I just thought about that. It is just kind of so unless you all think we need to, Sharon and I were thinking that this would be the last meeting. We reprioritize the options that we've talked about, all of our outcomes. The others will be communicated as well. And they could be, I'm not sure how we term them. I don't know if we're going to term them as longer term or what. We've got to figure that out in terms of how we want to present that. But everything that we have discussed, we all have been really clear in our meetings with the co-chairs that we think all of this needs to go, and they agree. Everything needs to be submitted. I know we have another meeting next week. We will continue to communicate via email, and anyone who wants to help us write the document into the format that it needs to be in, we're more than happy to have your help. And as we meet next week with the co-chairs, we will all communicate to you all again the outcome of that meeting and the discussion is had. Is that good for the order? I apologize. I should have done that better. So I'm sorry.
That's okay. I thought it was humorous. You're like, we're done.
Oh, I'm glad you just didn't hang up.
Bye.
Bye, Felicia.
But you guys, I will say this. It has been an honor and a pleasure working with all of you guys and getting to talk to some of you on different levels and making different connections in the community and figuring out different, topics and ways to work together. I think this has been great. I really appreciate and thank all of you guys.
Absolutely. Fantastic job. Great work. And I think all of us are going to stay engaged to see what happens.
Yes.
We didn't invest this time for no reason.
No.
We're going to stay engaged and see what happens.
Okay, and staying engaged, we're going to go ahead and close out our last meeting, but not our last communication. And so we're going to need a motion to close the meeting.
I move that we close out our last meeting. Thank you all for what you do and what you continue to do.
Thank you. And we need
Thank
a
you,
second.
sir.
I second it.
Thank you.
It's been, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you,
guys.
everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye, Felicia.